remember the way my mom clapped her hands when I showed her the final receipt, the one that said, balance $0. She cried like I had just graduated from Harvard. She kissed my cheek and said, "You've made us so proud, baby." And I believed her. For 23 years I believed her. Every scraped knee she patched up, every lunch she packed, every time she stayed up worrying when I was late getting home. I thought it was out of love, not obligation, not guilt, and definitely not a lie. I didn't grow up with much. Our little house on Cumberland Street always had more people than bedrooms and less food than mouths. But I worked. Oh, I worked. First job at 15, babysitting, then tutoring, then cleaning houses, then serving. By 21, I had enough saved to put a big dent in the mortgage. By 23, I paid the final lump sum. $38,912.17. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because it was home, because I thought it was ours. It happened 2 weeks after the mortgage was paid off. I came home from my shift at the community center and found Mom at the dining table, sorting through folders. I was about to walk past her when I saw my name, in capital letters, on one of the papers. Something about the way she quickly stuffed it away made my chest tighten. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just bills," she said too quickly. "Nothing you need to worry about." That's when I waited until midnight, when the house was dark and quiet, when even the fridge had stopped humming. And I went back to that drawer. There were documents I had never seen, an old social services file, court transcripts, letters signed with a last name I didn't recognize. And then, one envelope, yellowed, with time. Inside was a note, and a check. "Thank you for taking her in. I know she's not biologically yours, but I hope this helps with the burden. Monsieur Aldridge amount, $12,000. Memo, adoption stipend." Year 3, my throat closed. The paper shook in my hands, a burden. They were paid to keep me. And then came the sound behind me. A sharp inhale. Mom stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall. Light. "You shouldn't be in there," she said coldly. Not with fear, not with guilt, but with annoyance. "What is this?" I held up the letter. She crossed her arms. "You were never supposed to see that." "Who is Monsieur Aldridge? Why? Does it say I'm not biologically yours?" She blinked slowly, and then she shrugged. "You're not. We fostered you. It was temporary at first. Then you stayed." "I stayed? I stayed?" My voice cracked. "I paid off your house." "You chose to," she snapped. "We didn't force you to do that." I felt something rupture inside me, the kind of grief that doesn't come from loss, but from being used. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Mom didn't even look sorry. "You had a good life, didn't you? Roof over your head, food, education. What would knowing have changed?" "Everything." It would have changed everything. That night I didn't sleep, and by morning I knew I had to leave, but not quietly. Not like a ghost. If they saw me as just a foster kid, a financial inconvenience they managed to flip for profit, then it was time they realized I wasn't powerless anymore. I didn't pack much. Just the basics. A duffel bag, my laptop, the binders with my financial documents, and the folder I wasn't supposed to find. But the last thing I took was the deed. My name wasn't on it. Of course it wasn't. I didn't know then what I'd do with that realization, but it sat in the pit of my stomach like a stone. heavy, cold. As I closed the front door behind me, Mom's voice chased me down the hallway. "Don't go making drama where there isn't any, Hannah. You had a better life than you ever would have had." I turned slowly. "You mean the one where I paid for your roof and got told I was just a burden?" She flinched, but not enough. Not enough to mean she regretted it. "Some kids don't even get families," she hissed. "Be grateful you were taken in at all." That was when something in me snapped. Gratitude? They'd built an entire life around the lie that I owed them. That love was transactional, conditional, measured in dollars and silence. "You're right," I said with a tight smile. "I should be grateful. So let me show you just how grateful I can be." I didn't cry in the Uber, didn't scream, didn't post a long rant on social media. I opened my laptop and got to work. First, I filed a Freedom of Information request. If I was a foster child, there had to be records, names, court filings, real family, maybe even a birth certificate they never showed me. Next, I checked on the house deed again, still in their name. But the taxes, the HOA dues, every line item had my name all over it. I'd signed as the payer for years, saved receipts, email confirmations, digital bank statements. I made copies, backups, organized a timeline. Because if they thought I was some abandoned girl with nowhere to go and nothing to claim, they were about to learn just how sharp an ungrateful foster kid could become. The next week, I crashed with my friend Leah in her studio apartment. She didn't ask too many questions at first, just gave me a blanket and poured wine. But by the next night, when she saw me poring over legal forums and property rights blogs, she finally asked, "What are you doing, Hannah?" "Building a case," I said without looking up. "For what?" "For everything they stole from me. Time, money, identity. And when I'm done, they won't just lose a daughter." I looked up then, my voice flat. "They'll lose the life I bought for them." The letter came from social services 10 days later. I sat on Leah's floor to read it, and I stopped breathing halfway through the first page. My real name wasn't even Hannah. It was Emery Grace Aldridge. My mother had died in a car crash. My father had given me up temporarily while he underwent rehab for opioid addiction. He hadn't abandoned me. He'd fought for me. The last letter in the folder was dated 3 years after I was placed in care. "Please tell her I love her. Please tell her I didn't forget." The file said he'd passed away in 2015, right around the time I'd started community college. He never stopped trying to find me. They just never told me. They didn't even let him say goodbye. I stared at the pages in silence for a long time. And then I made a new plan. Not for revenge. Not yet. This wasn't about getting even anymore. This was about reclaiming who I was, who I had been before they wrote me out of my own life. Step 1. Legally restore my name. Step 2. Refile all those mortgage payments under my birth name. Traceable, documented, undeniable. Step 3. Take back what they stole. They lied to the wrong girl. And now I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Emery. I didn't cry when I found out my real name. Didn't even cry when I read the letter from my father, begging to see me again. But I did cry when I called the county courthouse and heard the words, "There's no record of an adoption for a Hannah Morgan under those guardians." That was it. Proof. I was never legally theirs. No guardianship, no adoption, no consent forms properly filed. What I thought was a family was really just a long con, one that ended the moment I was no longer financially useful. I filed to restore my birth name that same week. Emery Grace Aldridge. It felt strange at first, writing it on documents, signing it on forms. But the more I wrote it, the more it felt like putting bones back into place, like reclaiming my skeleton. Leah was the one who asked the question I hadn't yet dared to say aloud. So, if you're not legally their child, and you paid the mortgage, it was theft, I said flatly. She nodded. You gonna go after them? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I hadn't stopped planning since the day I left. I started by pulling up the property transaction records. I had receipts for every monthly payment over 5 years, direct transfers from my account to the bank, utilities, HOA dues, taxes, maintenance, all paid from my name. They always said I was just helping out, that they'd pay me back once things got better. But now that I was no longer family, that promise was dust, except I had more than promises. I had documentation. The final blow came by accident. Leah's friend Mia worked at the county recorder's office. She flagged something on the house file. Hey, she texted me one night. Is it true you were living at 82 Cumberland Street until recently? I called her instantly. Why? I asked. Because they just transferred the deed to someone named Natalie Morgan last week. My jaw tightened. Natalie. The golden one. The real daughter. The one they never asked for help from, but who now magically owned the home I paid off. I felt the burn rise in my throat, but I didn't scream. I didn't call them. Instead, I logged into the bank, opened every transfer slip, created a digital folder with every repair invoice I had covered. Then I went to my lawyer. Her name was Vivian Tran, and she didn't flinch at a single line of my story. She was sharp, efficient, and her eyes gleamed when I showed her the ledger. This is theft under civil grounds, she said. And potentially fraud, if they represented you as an adopted child to secure services or withhold information. What happens if we win? Well, she said, closing the folder gently, they might lose the house. You'd have legal grounds to claim restitution, possibly even file a lien. And if we don't win, she shrugged, then we fight again. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I didn't tell them about the lawsuit. Not yet. But I did send Natalie a message. Hope the new house feels like home. Just a heads up. You might want to hold off on redecorating. I kept the receipts. Emery. The next morning I got a reply. Not from her, but from my so-called mom. You are sick. This is disgusting, Emery. We raised you. We fed you. We loved you. Why are you doing this to us? I stared at it for a moment. And then I replied, You lied to me my entire life. You sold the only thing I had left without blinking. This is not revenge. This is just math. The first time I stepped into the courtroom, I almost turned around. My hands were cold. My stomach twisted. Not because I was scared of losing, but because I knew, deep down, they still didn't believe I would actually do it. To them, I was still Hannah. Still the girl who said okay too easily. Still the girl who worked double shifts and handed over paychecks with a smile. Still the one who called them mom and dad, even when it felt like begging. But that version of me had died the night I found that envelope. They sat across from me at the plaintiff's table. Mom wore that same peach cardigan she always used when she wanted to seem soft. Dad, or rather Robert, kept his arms crossed, like he was the one being wronged. And Natalie? She was on her phone, sipping iced coffee, not even pretending to take it seriously. I wasn't surprised. They never thought I was worth listening to before. Why would they start now? Vivian stood calmly beside me, her voice steady and surgical. Your Honor, my client, Emery Grace Aldridge, has made over 89 documented payments covering the full mortgage and maintenance expenses of the residence at 82 Cumberland Street. She was led to believe she was part of the family. However, no legal guardianship was ever formalized, and she was never added to the deed. She tapped the folder once. We are filing for civil restitution and requesting a lien be placed on the property until repayment is made in full, or legal transfer of partial ownership is granted. The judge skimmed through the first pages, raised his brow. You have all payment records here? Yes, Your Honor, including notarized bank statements, email confirmations, and proof of electronic transfers, all traceable to Ms. Aldridge's account. The room went still, except for Mom's faint scoff. I can't believe she's doing this to us, she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. The trial didn't conclude that day, but the damage was already done. Their faces were pale. Natalie looked up from her phone, and for the first time, they all looked nervous, because the judge didn't dismiss it. He accepted the motion. A temporary lien was placed on the property, meaning Natalie couldn't sell, refinance, or transfer it again without court approval. Vivian leaned toward me as we walked out. That was a win, she said softly. The next week, I got an email from Natalie. You're disgusting. You're literally trying to make Mom homeless. After everything she did for you. What kind of person sues the people who raised them? I read it twice, then a third time. Then I hit reply. The kind of person who was lied to, exploited, and erased. And by the way, she's not your victim. She's just finally being held accountable. Then came the smear campaign. Suddenly, old family friends started unfollowing me. My cousin, who once cried on my shoulder about being cheated on, posted a vague status about some people being ungrateful brats. Natalie uploaded a tearful TikTok. Imagine giving your all to someone, only for them to stab you in the back. But none of them mentioned the money. None of them mentioned the forged silence. None of them knew what it was like to grow up in a home where love came with receipts. So I stayed silent, because the courtroom would speak louder than any post ever could. By month 2 of the case, Vivian had built a mountain of evidence, signed delivery orders under my name email threads where Mom literally asked me to cover the water bill again. Text messages thanking me for paying off the last chunk of the mortgage. Then she found the nail in the coffin, a photo on Natalie's Instagram from last year. Caption: New home, 0 payments. Thanks to my sister's stupid generosity, blessed, not much mortgage-free. We added it to the evidence folder. By the 3rd hearing, the judge had seen enough. He leaned forward, hands clasped. Frankly, I don't understand how the defendants can sit here and claim moral high ground when every financial document ties the property's solvency to the plaintiff. Mom stood up, finally snapping. She was like our daughter. We fed her, we raised her, and now she wants to take the house out from under us? The judge stared coldly. Ma'am, if she was your daughter, you should have protected her, not erased her name the moment the payments cleared. The media didn't cover the case, but the neighborhood did. Within days of the court placing a lien on the house, whispers began spreading through the community like wildfire. She's suing her own parents? No, I heard she wasn't even really their kid. Why would someone fight over a house if it wasn't hers? Apparently, she paid for all of it. No one wanted to say it to my face, but I saw the stares. The way people crossed, their arms a little tighter when I walked by. Even at the corner store, Mr. Castillo, who used to offer me extra oranges in the winter, just said, "Tough world when family sues family." I didn't flinch, because the house may have belonged to them, but I was the one who kept the lights on. I kept my head down as the depositions began. Vivian questioned them separately. Mom tried to pretend she didn't remember who paid what. She claimed I helped sometimes, then denied ever asking me for money in writing until we pulled out the screenshots. Can you spot the part where you say, "Just this month again, sweetie, we'll start covering things after summer"? Silence. Dad fumbled. Said he thought I liked helping. Said he figured I was paying out of generosity, not obligation. Vivian didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She let the documents speak louder than any testimony. The breakthrough came during Natalie's deposition. She rolled her eyes at everything. Insulted me under her breath. Called me obsessed with being the victim. And then Vivian asked a single question. Who signed the quitclaim deed that transferred the house to you? Natalie smirked. Mom and Dad, obviously. Did they? Have your sisters, excuse me, Ms. Aldridge's, consent, considering she paid off the mortgage and the home improvements? She blinked. Why would they need her consent? She's not on the deed. But she was the sole payer on the SAR mortgage for the final 5 years. You're aware of that? Natalie looked confused, then annoyed. Whatever. That's not my problem. Vivian filed the motion the next day. Fraudulent transfer of title. If a property is transferred in bad faith, without acknowledgement or compensation to the financial contributor, a court can reverse it. Natalie laughed it off online, posted a video with the caption, "Can't steal what was never yours, cash to stay mad." I screenshotted it, sent it to Vivian. Perfect, she said. Self-incrimination via TikTok. 2025 is wild. But behind the bold face, I wasn't as calm. I had nights where I sat in Leah's bathroom and stared at the wall, trying not to unravel. I missed the version of me that believed I belonged somewhere. I missed being able to say Mom and not feel like I was choking on it. But what I didn't miss, being the one who begged for scraps, being the fool who thought love came in exchange for silence. They could call me heartless all they wanted, but I had the receipts. And soon, I'd have the deed. The final court date loomed. Vivian told me we had one more play, a single document that might close it all. So I went to the notary's office, and there, with 2 witnesses present, I signed a sworn affidavit detailing every cent I spent, backed by bank records, messages, emails, and even handwritten notes from Mom thanking me. As I signed the last page, Vivian handed me a second document. "This is the retroactive equity claim," she said. "It's the one that forces the court to evaluate how much of the property's current value legally belongs to you. What happens if they grant it?" She looked me in the eyes. "They won't be able to sell. They won't be able to refinance. And unless they pay you out your full share, they'll be forced to put the house on the market and split the proceeds with you." I paused, then signed. My name. Not Hannah, not the foster kid, but Emery Grace Aldridge. The court date arrived. Under gray skies. Leah drove me in silence. No music, no small talk, just the sound of tires humming over wet asphalt. When we pulled up, she squeezed my hand. "You ready?" I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. The courtroom wasn't full, but the tension was thick. Mom and Robert sat stiffly, their lawyer whispering rapidly. Natalie wasn't there. Of course not. She never showed up when it mattered. Vivian stood beside me, calm as always. But when the judge entered, she whispered one line under her breath. "We've got this." The proceedings were clinical. The judge reviewed all submitted evidence, nodded at the notarized affidavit, and flipped slowly through our retroactive equity request. Then came his statement. Based on presented documentation, this court finds sufficient grounds to conclude that Ms. Aldridge's financial contributions were not voluntary gifts, but structured, repeated payments in lieu of familial obligation. He paused, looked straight at my so-called parents. This constitutes financial exploitation. The transfer of the deed to Ms. Natalie Morgan is deemed fraudulent under these circumstances. Therefore, Mom gasped. Robert's mouth dropped open. The lien shall remain, and the property is to be evaluated for equitable partition. The court recommends either A. Immediate reimbursement to the plaintiff, totaling $112,400, or B. No sale of the property with profit divided by the court's calculation, 72% to the plaintiff, remainder to the defendants. I didn't look at them. Not when Mom started crying. Not when Robert tried to stand and protest. Not when the judge ordered the auction date, because I was finally done watching them perform grief for a camera that wasn't filming. 3 days later, I got the call. Mom. I almost didn't pick up, but something inside me needed to hear her voice crack. Emery, she began. Soft. Too soft. Can we talk? About what? I said flatly. The house. Please. Don't let it go to auction. We raised you. You don't have to do this. I almost laughed. You mean the way you didn't have to take the money? Or lie to me about who I was? Or transfer a house behind my back? Silence. We didn't mean to hurt you. You meant to use me. And you did. You got your house, your comfort, your mortgage-free life. You just never thought I'd wake up. She started crying. Please. We're losing everything. I stood by the window in Leah's apartment, watching as the sun cut through thick clouds. Good. Then maybe now we're even. Goodbye, Linda. And I hung up. The auction was set for June 14th. They had 30 days to vacate. I didn't go. Didn't need to. The court wired my share 3 weeks later. $312,000. Direct deposit. No apologies attached. Vivian called me after. We could have taken more, you know. I didn't need more, I told her. I just needed them to stop thinking I was the stupid girl who'd always pay the bill. Later that night, I took out the last letter from my real father. Folded, edges, ink smudged near the signature. Please tell her I didn't forget. I whispered back. I didn't forget either. And I meant it, because his daughter, Emery Grace Aldridge, finally got justice. And they finally got what they deserved. They moved out at the last possible moment. Leah and I drove by the house 2 days before the auction. A for sale by court order sign stood in the front yard, tilted slightly to the right, like it had been jammed into the ground in a rush. Black garbage bags lined the curb. Natalie's BMW was parked across the lawn. And in the window, the living room window I once decorated with paper snowflakes and red yarn, someone had scrawled on the glass and lipstick, "Homewrecker." I didn't stop the car. Didn't. Roll down the window. Didn't even blink, because by then I finally understood. They didn't hate what I did. They hated that I could. The auction went through without incident. Some developer bought the house for nearly double what it was worth 5 years ago. Natalie tried to post about it online, but the comments weren't on her side anymore. One read, "Didn't you brag that it was yours free and clear? Now you're blaming the person who paid for it? Girl, take several seats." That one made me smile, not because I needed validation, but because I didn't have to say a word. I moved cities. Not far. Just far enough that the air felt different, the sidewalks unfamiliar, the shadows clean of history. I signed a lease for a loft apartment. All mine. No one else's name on the buzzer. No one else's hands in my wallet. When the realtor asked what to list under emergency contact, I paused for the first time in a while. Then I wrote Leah's name, and that was enough. Some nights, I still hear it. That sentence, the one that shattered me. You're not really ours. It echoes sometimes, in a song, in a silence, in the sound of a door closing down the hall. But I don't feel hollow anymore. I don't feel broken, because I am not what they called me. I am not a mistake, not a burden, not a convenient deposit. I am Emery Grace Aldridge, and I built a life on the ashes of their lies. One payment, one truth, one signature at a time. The night after the court released the final funds, I slept without a single dream. No nightmares. No echoes. No weight on my chest. And when I woke up the next morning, the first light hit my window like gold, like forgiveness, like freedom. And I didn't feel regret. I just felt peace. 3 months passed. The city began to feel like home. I had a rhythm now. Morning coffee at the same little cafe. A weekend routine of reading by the window. The smell of paint from a canvas I kept pretending to finish. Life had color again. Not borrowed, not stolen. Mine. Then came the knock, a Wednesday, late afternoon, sunlight just starting to soften into gold. I opened the door and froze. Linda, tired. Mascara streaked under her eyes. A jacket 2 sizes too big. "Hi," she said, like it was still her right. I didn't answer. I heard you were here. From Leah's Instagram, I think. I just wanted to talk. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She wasn't coming in. "I don't want money," she said quickly. "I swear, I just wanted to see you. You haven't answered anything." "You mean after you tried to erase me? Or after you transferred the house without telling me?" She winced. "I made mistakes, Emery, I know. But we did love you. I didn't know how to be a mom to someone who wasn't mine." "But I was yours," I said. "I cooked dinner. I paid bills. I stayed when you were sick. I was yours when it was convenient, but not when it counted." Her mouth opened, then shut again. "I lost everything," she whispered. "Natalie moved out. Robert blames me. We're all scattered. And You wanted me to feel like I didn't belong," I said, voice calm. "But you're the one without a home now." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry. I really am." I believed her, and I didn't care. Because apologies don't pay back stolen years. They don't restore a name. They don't make you a mother. She looked past me, toward the door. "Can I come in? Just for a bit?" I took a slow breath, then shook my head. No. Her face crumpled. You'd really do that to me? I stepped back. I already changed the locks, Linda. You don't get to come in anymore. And I turned, walked inside, closed the door with a soft click. That night, I poured tea, lit a candle, and opened my father's letter one last time. Then I tucked it into the back of a new photo frame. One with a picture of me, smiling, alive, standing on my balcony in the light of a new city. The caption underneath read, "Built by me, paid by me, peace by choice." And I meant every word.